Are you looking to expand your aesthetic practice and attract high-quality new patients? Discover the power of digital marketing in growing your practice with a personalized strategy session. Schedule your meeting today by visiting www.businessofesthetics.org/MSM and take the first step towards transforming your practice with the potential of digital marketing.
You're invited to join our exclusive monthly webinar brought to you by the Business of Aesthetics community. Don't let this chance slip through your fingers. Secure your spot now for a game-changing experience. Register for free on our homepage at www.businessofesthetics.org and get set to transform your strategies.
Welcome to another episode of the Business of Aesthetics podcast, brought to you by our gold sponsors, Equa Marketing. Today, we're excited to hear from Naren Arulrajah. Over to you, Naren.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of the Business of Aesthetics podcast. I am Naren Arulrajah, the co-founder and co-host of this Business of Aesthetics community and podcast. Before we immerse ourselves into our episode today, I want to take a moment to thank all of you for being such a wonderful community. We are the largest community of aesthetic practice owners in the United States and probably in the world. We have tens of thousands of people who listen to our podcast. We have a very vibrant Facebook community, and we also we have a lot of engagement in LinkedIn as well. So we are the largest virtual community, and it's all because of you. So thank you for sharing what we do here with your colleagues. Thank you for the reviews. Thank you for the questions you send in, and keeping us on our toes. Now let's jump into today's episode. Today I have a wonderful guest who is the Vice President of Marketing and Sales for EndyMed, Sally Bevans. Sally, am I pronouncing your last name correctly?
Yep, Bevans.
And I want to kind of dive into the do's and don'ts of big aesthetic purchases. Because that's a topic that I think a lot of you probably have a lot of nightmares about, because, I have heard dozens and dozens and dozens of stories about practices, buying something, investing a lot of money, and then feeling like, oops, I made a massive mistake that I'm paying for years and years and years and tens of thousands of dollars. So, Sally has been in the industry for a long time. So she has, seen this. She has worked with different companies. So she's seen the good, the bad, the ugly. So I want to pick her brain and kind of, have a conversation around the do's and don'ts when you are thinking about aesthetic purchases, especially large aesthetic purchases. So Sally, welcome to the show.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's start by talking about I know this episode is not to scare people, but at the same time, people want to learn and benefit from the time they're giving us today. So let's talk about some of the worst mistakes you have seen practice owners make.
The first and foremost is just being over leveraged, right? So I think in business in general, you have to be very conscientious of a business plan and how you spend your money and managing your overhead. But I think one thing that people don't do is they're like, okay, I want to get into medical aesthetics and I want to, offer these treatments, and they do it without having a vision, right? So they just buy what everybody else buys. So I'll give you an example. There's certain devices that are kind of, I look at it having been in the space for 15 years now, and they're kind of fatty. They're a fad. They come and they're really big, and everybody buys it, and then they drive each other's business into the ground because there is an awareness to some extent, a patient awareness of what these different devices do. I think because of social media, there's some misinformation or miseducation that the patients have. But when companies in this space do a really good job of marketing their brand or marketing their device, and patients think that they need that, and they go in and they ask for it, or they start looking for it online, if you have it and your neighbor has it and their neighbor has it, what's going to end up happening is that patient always wants the deal. So you guys are going to have to, basically outbid each other and run your business into the ground. And when it comes to doing that with devices, with consumables, that's even harder, right? Because your profit margin is impacted already by the consumable. So I think first it's important to understand what your vision is. Is this going to be more wellness geared? Is it going to be more, anti-aging? Is it your run of the muck med spa? And that's not really where you want to be. And then so I'll give you an example. My husband is an aesthetic dentist. He's integrated facial aesthetics into 2 dental practices. We did have a standalone med spa during COVID when he was moving from Colorado to Florida and needed to get his license here. And, him being a dentist and me being in the medical aesthetics, the technology-based space for a long time, we knew we wanted, and he's also an injector trainer. So we knew we wanted to have the injectables because that's easy, right? And it was understanding our time too, how much time, energy, and effort we were going to put in this and how much time we wanted to spend there. But what treatments were going to fit the area that we were in, the demographic that we were in. We have a lot of, we're in Jupiter, Florida. Our med spa was in Palm Beach Gardens. And there's a lot of transient, seasonal people. It's also a little bit older of a demographic. And what we found is, me knowing this technology inherently, I know that there are devices out there that the treatments don't need to be super painful in order to be effective. But your older patients, specifically your little older women, they generally think that beauty is pain. So they were expecting some pain. So we actually had to go out afterwards and be tactical about finding things that provided a little pain and that we also knew were going to be super efficacious. So yeah, that's one thing too, to consider your demographic, like what are going to be the treatments that are going to generate the most revenue for you and also appeal to the people or the patients that are coming in. And I think people miss the mark on that by trying to be a part of the fad.
Yeah, let's kind of go a little bit deeper in some of the points you made. Let's start with, overextending yourself, right? So a lot of startup practices do this. They are making zero revenues, right? They're the startup, but then they have invested hundreds of thousands of dollars in their upgrade, their innovations, the technology. And then on day one, they have a massive bank bill to pay every single month, right? Now, that's on day one, whether they make a single dollar of revenue or not, they have to pay that, right? Like that fixed expenses. And then
Right.
that pressure gets to them and many of them don't make it and they fold and, really bad things happen. So I think your first point was really valid. Like, be smart. In other words, don't spend money you don't have, right? Imagine like, if you don't have the cash flow to support something and then you have leftover for, to run a comfortable practice, even if things go south, right? I mean, always, we have rainy days, the economy shifts, things shift, seasonal shift. So you really have to do your calculations. You really have to make sure that, this is going to work out. So so I'm going to kind of unpack a lot of what you said and let's just take each point. Anything else you
Yeah.
want to add around, this idea of, looking at your numbers, looking at your cash flow, being very conservative. So you're not just, especially in today's climate, interest rates are really, really high. And because of inflation, people's monies are really tight. So people are not, spending as much as they used to. Doesn't mean it's going to last forever, but that's kind of where we find ourselves in 2024.
Yeah, I think in that regard, when it comes specifically to aesthetic devices and what you're spending your money on in your practice, when you start out, there's quite a few platform devices out there that offer a multitude of different treatments, right? So if you're starting small, bring on something that's going to offer, again, the most popular treatments out there: hair removal, pigment, vascular, active acne clearance, right? And there are systems out there that instead of spending, like you said, hundreds of thousands of dollars on all of these different devices, specifically standalone devices, find something that's going to offer a multitude of different treatments that's only going to be, a single, or maybe you get a couple that are adjunctive, right? But that keep your overhead low and that monthly payment where you need to be, while also being able to market to and bring in all of those patients.
And to your point, your husband started with injectables, right? It does no upfront expenses. So even before you invest in technology, maybe start with injectables. If your money is really tight and you don't have a few $100,000 sitting in the bank and the only way you're going to buy these is through a loan, start with something like consumables, right? And build a base.
Right.
Now, the second point you talked about is a vision. And I think that's a critical point, right? Every practice is different and unique. I work with dermatologists, I work with med spas. You already have a patient base. Like, so you already you need to figure out, what do my patients want? Like, for example, like I have, a particular dermatologist I'm thinking of, I had a conversation with recently. She's African American. She treats skin of color. So a lot of people
Mhm.
from skin of color gravitate towards this. So no point buying devices that caters to everybody else, but not to your audience. So figure out like, oh, you do a lot of, let's say, skin cancer work. So maybe there are certain things that those patients are looking for. So like, look at, it's almost like, imagine you are going on a hike in a hilly area. It's easier to climb the next hill than climb a hill 1,000 miles away. You know what I mean? The
Right.
next hill
Yeah.
is a similar terrain. You already know that area. You're wearing the right shoes. You're already kind of pretty good at climbing the hill next to it. So you know what to do. So now going to a slightly different hill that's joining that, maybe a little bit higher, is easier than like going and doing something brand new, right? So is
Right.
that how your husband did it? Is that how you recommend? Like when you talk about vision, can you expand on that? Because there's no like a vision for everyone, right? Every vision is different from each person depending on where you are and who your patient base is.
Yeah. My husband, again, being a dentist, he took his first injectable course in 2016. And, that was easy. I think for him, his staff was, they're young women and they're all about it. And then he got them excited. I think having a staff that's behind you on all of this and making sure that they're incentivized to push it was big. And I think if you tried to go full Monty in a dental practice, just bringing all of this stuff into this at one time, the patients would be like, what's going on here? But for
Right.
him, he was able to implement Botox, and Botox does have the therapeutic indication for TMD and facial pains, chronic headaches, that kind of thing. So that kind of explanation of it made sense as well. And then once they had integrated that and they had those injectables and they were successful and he had repeat business clients coming back on the regular basis, of course they would say, well, can you do something about this pigmented lesion, or they would say
Right.
sunspot, right? And so it's an easy way to then kind of understand what patients want. The other thing that he did very successfully was when he knew that he wanted to bolster that aesthetic piece of it, he really enjoyed that part of practicing. And he had those repeat patients. He did a patient interest survey. So he had just like a little postcard and it had all of the treatments that he was considering bringing on. And he would give them to all of the patients, every patient that came in every day, right? New, old, and just got an idea of what patients were going to respond to first. So that's going to allow you also to decide which device that you're going to go with, right? Because now you're honed in on it. The other thing that was he was able to do with that is he would take that patient interest survey and he would note that on the patient file. So say, they were going to run a promo. He already knew which patients wanted which treatment, so he can market that promo directly to those patients. They think they're getting a deal. It was already, well thought through, and they're going to buy those packages or they're going to come in for those treatments. So something that's as simple as that, if you do have a patient base, if it's a non-core doctor getting into aesthetics that can rely on their existing patient base, I think that's something really tactful to do, tactical to do in order to understand, what to buy and when.
Yeah, I want to kind of build on what Sally just said. So, this hits a bunch of points, right? One is, um, you are already, we talked about budget and money, right? So you already know it's going to pay for itself because you already have done the surveys. Your patient's already telling you, yes, they want this. And you can do the math and okay, it's going to cost you X dollars a month or, whatever. And your patients already are more than willing to, use that service, which will pay your bills, right? So that way you're checking off the budget and the money side of it. And the second thing is, like you said, I love that example you shared about your husband's practice. He was a dentist, so him just going all crazy on med spa services, like what's going on here, right? Doesn't make any sense. So Botox was a great way to bring it in because it already helps with TMG and a lot of things that dentists deal with. So and the team could buy into it, your patients could buy into it. It became organic. It became like, okay, I just did a 5K, now I'm doing an 8K. Now that I did an 8K, I'm doing a 12, 15K. So it makes it easy for people to kind of wrap their hands around and understand what's going on, as opposed to seeing it as, oh, another money grab, and like it's all about him or the practice owner and not about me, the patient. So I think even from that perspective, it kind of goes with a vision. It goes with like, what's next, what's next, what's next. the thing that I was thinking of when you were saying this is the people who have a good plan typically don't get lost. Like, you're going to go here and you know how you're going to get there. People who don't have a plan, they talk to this person, that person, and today they are going here and tomorrow they're going there. And then of course, they're lost, right? Because they never had a plan. So listening to you talk, and I think you have a unique perspective, not because because you've been in the industry and worked with a lot of practices, but you have personal experience with your own family and your own business. So would you strongly recommend, like, really think about, like, okay, almost like have a vision for your your investment strategy that is driven by you, meaning you decide what's next. I mean, maybe if in the beginning it's just injectables, like you in your case, right? And then so you always know what's my next thing, and then go out and seek out companies or products that can meet that need. And then, okay, now that you're there and okay, the first phase one is working, now let's go to phase two. Okay, what's my next phase? And then what are the companies that can at a lower cost meet my needs and so forth? Is that how you are recommending? Like, you as a doctor needs to have a vision for your tech, next tech investment.
Yeah, absolutely. It needs to make sense, not only inwardly, but it needs to make sense outwardly, right? To people that are coming in. Like, why are they coming in to you to begin with, right? So there has to be some thought put into that. And certainly the investment aspect of it too. I think, and I talked about it a little with consumables, but you have to also consider, like, okay, what's my cost now? But what's my long-term cost, right? So these devices, technology as a whole, right? I always use the iPhone example. Like, I bought the iPhone 15 yesterday, and then their iPhone 16 comes out. Now you're not the cool kid on the block anymore. You know what I'm saying? But you still have to pay the whole amount for that next phone.
Right.
And there are certain models like that within the space where, if you get, you have a device and you've had it for a while, and then you're going to upgrade, like, what's that going to look like? Or when is this system going to be obsolete? Or what's the business model surrounding warranty and long-term cost on this? And is it going to lend itself to, continuing to be affordable, right? Because that's a big challenge that people face in this, for sure.
Yeah. So what you're saying there is, like, there are some tips to be smart with money, right? Like certain things,
Yeah.
maybe you could buy a slightly older version because it does 90% of what the brand new double the price version can do. So, it's like, sometimes when you buy a car that's 6 months older, you'll get a massive discount versus that brand new car, right? Just because
Right.
the minute you drive it out of the parking. So, but at the same
I
time,
mean,
if it's too late, then it's going to be obsolete in 6 months. So now you wasted your money as well. So, like, knowing, like, how to be smart with your money and how to and I think go ahead, you're going to say something.
yeah. There's certain models too, like, well, one, always ask for a demo device, right? I strongly suggest not buying used systems, not from the manufacturer, because that almost inevitably is going to be unaffordable from a recertification standpoint, because all of these companies want to make their money. That's how they make their money, if the system's sold secondhand, right? But then hopefully you always buy from the manufacturer. And ask for a demo device, and they might say no. And then you just say, well, this is my budget. Like, have an idea of what it's going to cost, right? And the rep's always going to tell you some crazy list number. Have an idea of what that looks like, and have an idea of what you want to spend. Like, be stern in that situation, and there's different things, when to buy, when during the year do you want to buy. I always tell everybody, always try to buy at the end of the quarter. Summers are really slow for everybody in general, not just you, the spa owner, because everybody's on vacation and whatnot in the sun. And if it's light based, then you run the issue with being light sensitive and burning and that kind of thing. But I think, know what tactics there are in order to make your acquisition affordable from the get-go and ongoing.
Right. Kind of, let's switch back to marketing and demand gen. I know we talked about, like, buying things that kind of fits with your current patient base, current practice, current vision. So the natural next device or the next step. But at the same time, you could hopefully augment that with marketing, but don't buy it because of marketing, but use marketing to get more profits out of it. Is that how you think about this?
Yeah, I think one thing that I've done is a lot of the manufacturers in the space try to be an all-in-one, and they say, oh, you're going to buy this device and we're going to support you and we're going to market this for you. And they may do some initiatives in the beginning, but remember, these companies, what they're good at is making the device. They're not marketing companies, right? So what I've done here is just align ourselves with post-sale support vendors that we build into the acquisition of the sale, and it's customized. It's based on what does that person really need? So we have a very consultative approach. Tell me about your business. Tell me about your challenges. What are your needs? And then what we do is we outfit their acquisition with the support that they actually need, rather than, everybody gets the same thing, or we're trying to do it ourselves, but we're never going to be as successful as somebody that's what they do all day long, every day. There are some that are really, really good. And that was my challenge too. The biggest eye-opening experience that we had when we opened our standalone was the marketing piece of it. Like, I thought, I worked as a clinical trainer and in all facets of sales and marketing and that kind of thing within the space. But I always was like, oh, just, put some posts, some boosted posts on Facebook and Instagram and run your ads that way. But if you're not positioned appropriately, if you don't have reviews, if you don't have a killer website, if you're not doing SEO, and that was daunting. Like, it was really daunting. So I made it my mission to do my due diligence and find really the best in the space, that this is what they do all day long. And this is all they do, aesthetics, right? And they have an affordable plan and they have trackability. Like, you can bring on a marketing company, but if you don't have the ability to track different initiatives and see what you're doing the best, that's really driving revenue, then it's pointless. It's money wasted. And, so I don't know if you're familiar with Maven Agency, but I found that they are just an incredible company from a well-rounded marketing. They just kind of offer everything, and they do have a proprietary software that tracks all of the initiatives that they do alongside their clients. So it's marketing is a huge piece of it. It's a huge piece of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we do marketing for our practices, and call tracking is important. You need to know the cost of a new patient from marketing. And what I find is SEO is the hardest, but it's the lowest cost. Everybody wants social media. It's like the sexy kid on the block that we all want to date, or, that football player that everybody wants to date, but only very few people get it right. And the reason is you can't outsource social media. Social media is about you being famous or you being somebody popular and people liking and trusting you. So like Oprah can't hire a body double to be Oprah, right? Oprah has to be Oprah, kind of the same,
Right.
right? Like you can't outsource it. So I mean, you can do it. There are some people spending 10, 15 hours a week and they love this, and they just put themselves out there and create content every day and become like really, really popular on social media. But if you're not that personality type, then I think you need, like you said, solid reviews, solid website, solid SEO. The things that can work behind the scenes, where you as the practice owner doesn't have to, invest in things. And I would even argue, till you have a solid marketing, don't invest money in
Right.
technology, right? Because it's like you have a C team and you are trying to, punch above your waist and increase your expenses with all these investments, but the C team can't handle it. I mean, C team meaning C capabilities. So marketing is like really bad and nobody's coming in, and you're putting more and more money, investing in technology, and nobody's using that technology. Let's talk about some mistakes, right? I know, because I've heard horror stories with lots of my friends who are doctors. Obviously, the way the business model works is there's a lot of commission salespeople. I'm not saying every company does that, but a lot of companies do. And they are very incentivized to like do anything to close that deal, right? And they're like, oh, it's only $2,000 and we're going to throw in this marketing, and oh, we're going to make you successful, and all that beautiful things that are said. But then the deal is signed, doctor is now paying that $2,000 for the next 10 years, and he's not making a dime from it or next 5 years. So he's pretty upset. So I guess, what would you tell a doctor to like watch out for? Like, should he even not, or should she not even like entertain these types of conversation versus like, okay, this is what I want. Let me go and find 3 companies I should talk to and then pick the best one. Like, how would you give doctors some guidance on like how to protect their mind space and their thinking around like, like making good decisions?
Yeah. Um, that's a loaded question for sure. I think mistakes that are made are being pressured into a sale, right? So, like you said, I think the biggest mistake is, okay, I've made the decision to buy this. However, they made the decision to buy this, and then it's in their practice, and they think if you build it, they will come. Like that's not the case. So
Right.
marketing, right? Marketing, marketing, marketing. Um, but I also I think if rely on your colleagues, which is one of the things that I think that the business of aesthetics, platform is so amazing for, is that they can ask. But the other thing is, not only are the reps commission incentivized, there's a bunch of doctors out there that are getting paid from the manufacturers
Right.
that you would never know, right? So if you go on there and you say, what device should I get? You might have 12 doctors being paid from 12 different manufacturers to put content on there, right? Because if they refer the sale and they can prove that, they are going to get paid, right? So
Right.
there's a lot of margin in these systems to utilize resources in that fashion. But I think be smart about it, right? Like you're going to go and test drive a car before you buy a car. Make sure you have them come in and do demos. And for those companies that say they don't do demos, don't buy from them, right?
Right.
So try it out, even if it means going to another practice and buying that treatment and having it done so that you know that it's effective. And that's another way of like really understanding it. A lot of the reps will demo these devices, and when they do it, knowing that it's painful when it's used with the parameters that it's supposed to be used at, they'll knock down those parameters, so you will have no idea of really how painful that treatment is, right? Then you buy that device and you can't get your patients to come back after the first treatment because it was so painful. So I think just be smart about it. Use common sense and compare it to things like buying a house, because some of these things cost that much, or buying
Right.
a car. You're not going to go and two, don't waste your time or theirs. That's one thing on my end drives me nuts. Like if you're interested and you come to us, great, we're going to come and help you. That's awesome. But if you're like, I'm done, say you're done and don't waste your time or theirs anymore, because they're going to
Right.
hound you until you do something,
Yeah. And then
right?
eventually,
Just put
like
it to bed.
you just based on pressure, you say yes. It's not a
Right.
really as thoughtful yes, but it's like, okay, I want to get rid of this person. And the only way to get rid of them.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, I think these are really, really wonderful tips. So just to summarize, think about money and budget and be thoughtful. Have a vision. So it's not, the tail shouldn't be wagging. The salespeople or the company shouldn't be telling you what to do. You should know what you need to do based on your practice and what that next step is for you. And take it step by step. Survey your patients. That'll also help you with marketing. Build a strong marketing presence. Even before you start investing in technology, make sure your marketing is stellar. And if you are the Oprah type who loves being out there and creating a lot of content, lean into social media. If not, lean into Google reviews, SEO, awesome website. And then when the time is ready, not let them not let the companies not drive the conversation. You drive the conversation. This is what I
Right.
want. This is what I'm trying to do. Here are the 3 vendors who are the top 3, and I'm going to talk to them. Let them demo the product so I can experience it. I can see the numbers. I can see, maybe even talk to some references, talk to 3 doctors, and then make a rational choice. Okay, this is what I want to do. And based on what I want to do, I looked at all 3 options and I evaluated them carefully, and then I'm going with the right person. Am I summarizing some of the key points you shared with
Yeah.
us so far?
You did a great job.
Thank you, Sally. I'm so curious. You have a wonderful experience both as a family member of a person who owned a practice, as well as somebody who has been in the industry for 15 years. Can you share some color on like your story, your journey in the industry, and what are some of the things you have done? Because I want people to get to know you as well, Sally.
Yeah, thank you. I went to college and I was going to study. I was going to be a dolphin trainer. So marine biology is what I was thinking I was going to do, and so I went kind of the biology route. But a semester into college, I was offered a modeling contract, and I always make this joke, like, I got to the point where I had modeled and traveled the world for several years, and I realized there was more to being really, really ridiculously good looking. But ironically, I've now worked in the medical aesthetic industry for the last 15 years. So I got into it with a degree in biology, went back to college, finished my college career, and was offered an opportunity to work as a clinical trainer for one of the manufacturers within the space. And then shortly thereafter was recruited by another, again, to work clinically. So I traveled around and trained doctors, nurses, estheticians, how to utilize these systems. I spent a lot of time in radio frequency, but also worked with IPL, laser, microderm, dermofacial devices, all of it. And so my sales route has always been knowing everything inherently clinically. So I was offered an opportunity to work in national account sales. So I worked with big groups and franchises, that kind of thing. Then moved into strategic sales, where I spent a lot of time forging partnerships with injectable academies and different aesthetic groups and opportunities to provide us exposure to doctors. I started the dental division, which is actually how I met my husband, and worked in kind of R&D as well to create some new devices and treatment capabilities. And then moved into like a business development role, which was kind of all encompassing. And then I was given an opportunity in February to come over to EndyMed as the VP of sales and marketing. And I think that marketing eye-opening experience realized that like you have to have solid marketing in order to sell anything. And so the two go hand in hand. So given an opportunity to kind of come over to EndyMed, which has had such amazing, they have a proprietary delivery of radio frequency that is wholly different than anything else that's out there. So I was really excited with my background clinically and in training and working so long with radio frequency to really understand this. And now, working to grow our product portfolio. We have an awesome diode laser. We have a great, probably the most versatile RF platform on the device or in the market that has RF microneedling, fractional resurfacing, and then focus for tightening and contouring. But yeah, and then obviously in the meantime, working with my husband to help grow the aesthetic practice. That's travel the world. I now get speaking opportunities. So I feel like I have a good understanding of kind of all facets of the industry.
That's awesome, Sally. Yeah. So if somebody wants to learn more about EndyMed, what's the best way for them to kind of reach out? I don't want your email or inbox to be overwhelmed. So just what are some of the ways people can get a hold of your firm and kind of learn more about what you guys do?
Yeah, so we just launched our US website, endymedusa.com. And there's a request a demo. So if they have any questions or want to learn more, it's certainly available for you. And somebody will reach out directly and kind of, I've purposely kind of created a culture at this company that's very different from what you were talking about, the old, how do you get rid of a laser rep you buy from him kind of situation. We have a very different approach here, very customer centric. So more than happy to approach things with anybody that comes to us in that manner from a very genuine, honest, and consultative perspective.
That's awesome. As we bring this to a close, any final thoughts, Sally, that you want to leave with our listeners?
No, I think you summarized it so well. I think it's just be very, very thoughtful and be patient in your acquisition of systems or how you're spending your money in your practice, right? And just, if you have a plan, then you're going to drive the sale rather than, like you said, the manufacturer doing it as well. So just be very thoughtful when you're doing these things, And I think as long as that's the case, everybody's going to win.
Thank you so much. You're such a wealth of knowledge, and I think you have a unique perspective. You straddle both sides of the fences, being the practice owner as well as the person in the industry. If you enjoyed this episode, definitely share it with your colleagues and friends. You can share it on social media, write a review for us. We'll make it easy. We'll include all the contact details that Sally mentioned. So if you want to follow up with her firm, you can do so as well. Sally definitely is a wealth of knowledge. I mean, I'm definitely appreciative of the time you spent with me today, Sally. I also want to take a minute to thank our listeners. Once again, we can't do what we do without you. So if you enjoyed this podcast, share it, write a review. And till we meet again, have a wonderful week ahead.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us this week on the Business of Aesthetic podcast series, brought to you by our gold sponsor, Equa Marketing. Would you like to join our growing group of aesthetic industry experts and get featured on the Business of Aesthetics podcast? Or do you know someone who would love to share their strategies for growth in the aesthetic business, providing quality patient care or their clinical expertise? Head over to www.businessofesthetics.org podcast show and apply to be featured as a guest on the show. Remember to subscribe to this podcast on iTunes, Google Play, Amazon Music, or wherever you listen. If you would like to engage with today's speakers or any of our past speakers, join our Facebook group or LinkedIn group by searching for Business of Aesthetics. Thank you, and have a great day.